In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet ran an experiment to study how decisions are made in the brain. He asked people to do something simple: move their wrist whenever they felt like it. At the same time, he recorded their brain activity to see what happened before they became aware of their decision. What he found was unexpected. The brain had already prepared the movement before the person even felt like they had chosen to do it. A signal was detected almost half a second before they were conscious of making a choice. Let that sink in for a moment. The decision was already happening before the person knew they had decided. Now ask yourself, if the brain is acting before you're aware of making a choice, who is really in control? This is where things start to get uncomfortable. Most people assume they are thinking their thoughts, that their mind is generating ideas, making decisions, and controlling their actions. But the truth is, if you pay attention, you'll see something strange. Thoughts appear out of nowhere. Try this right now. Sit still and wait for your next thought. Don't try to think, just observe. At some point, something will pop into your head. A word, an image, a memory. But did you decide to think that? Or did it just show up on its own? Most people never realize this because the mind immediately takes credit for whatever appears. I just thought about that. I remembered this just now. I came up with this idea. But did you? Or did it simply happen and your mind claimed ownership after the fact? This is what makes the illusion so powerful. Imagine you're watching a movie. The main character seems to be making choices, taking action, controlling their life. But in reality, every movement, every line of dialogue, every event is already written in the script. Now, what if that's exactly what's happening inside your head? What if the thoughts, emotions, and desires you think you are choosing are actually just appearing on their own, following a script that was never yours to begin with? Because when you really look, you'll notice something else. You can't even predict your next thought. Try it, right now. Try to guess what your very next thought will be. Did you know what it was going to be before it appeared, or did it just show up? If you were truly in control, you would be able to see the thought coming before it arrived. But you can't. It just appears, and then the mind rushes in to take ownership of it. And here's where it gets even deeper. If you're not the one generating your thoughts, then how much of your life has actually been chosen by you? Your beliefs, your fears, your desires, where did they come from? Did you decide, as a child, what you would be afraid of? Or did society, family, and experience install those fears into you? Did you consciously choose what you enjoy, or were those preferences shaped by things outside of your control, even your personality? Was it something you designed, or something that developed as a result of genetics and environment? Most people never question this. They walk around believing, this is just who I am. But when you look closer, you start to see that the self is just a collection of programmed patterns, thoughts that arise without your permission, emotions that react without your control, beliefs that were passed down to you like a script you never agreed to. And the mind, in its attempt to maintain the illusion of control, keeps narrating the story of you. You are not the author, you are the observer. The moment you see this clearly, something shifts. You stop believing every thought that appears. You stop reacting automatically to emotions. You stop assuming that every idea, every craving, every fear is yours. Because now, you see what has always been happening. Thoughts come and go, like clouds passing in the sky. You don't control them. You never did. And once you realize that, the question remains, if you are not the thinker of your thoughts, then who are you? You've spent your entire life assuming that you are the thinker of your thoughts, that the voice in your head is you, that every idea, memory, and decision is a result of your conscious control. But if thoughts simply appear without your permission, then who or what is actually running the show? This is where things take a turn. Most people, when they first realize this, feel unsettled. they start to notice something strange, that their thoughts don't just appear randomly, they follow patterns, repetitive cycles that seem almost mechanical. And when you start to observe them without identifying with them, you begin to see that you are not leading your thoughts. Your thoughts are leading you. Take a moment to think about this. Have you ever caught yourself lost in a spiral of overthinking? A memory resurfaces, maybe something embarrassing from years ago, and suddenly it pulls you into an emotional loop. You start replaying it, imagining different outcomes, feeling the same emotions all over again. But did you choose to start thinking about that moment? Did you decide to relive that? Number the thought pulled you in, and before you even realized it, you were following it like a script. It's as if the mind is on autopilot, repeating thoughts, replaying memories, generating desires, all while convincing you that you are the one in charge. And this isn't just happening with random thoughts. It's happening with your entire personality. Think about the habits you have, the way you react in certain situations, the way you automatically judge something as good or bad. Where did those reactions come from? Did you consciously decide to shape yourself this way? Or did they emerge as a result of patterns running in your mind, formed by past experiences, culture, and conditioning? Because if thoughts appear on their own, and if your reactions are automatic, then the self you think you are is not something you created. It's something that has been unfolding, shaped by forces beyond your awareness. And here's where it gets deeper. If the thoughts that shape your personality arise on their own, if your desires and beliefs were planted by things outside of your control, then what exactly is the you that you identify with? For centuries, philosophers have tried to define the self. Some believed it was the soul, something beyond the mind and body. Others, like the Scottish philosopher David Hume, searched for the self within their own consciousness and found nothing. Hume observed that when he looked within himself, all he could find were thoughts, emotions, and sensations constantly changing. There was never a fixed self, just a stream of experience. And modern neuroscience is saying the same thing. Brain scans show that there is no single place in the brain where the self is located. Instead, the sense of self is just a collection of processes, patterns firing in different areas of the brain, constantly shifting, constantly changing. So if there is no solid you inside your mind, then what are you? The answer is something most people never even consider. You are not the thoughts. You are not the emotions. You are not the beliefs, memories, or reactions. You are simply the one watching it all happen. A silent awareness, observing the thoughts that come and go, untouched by any of them. And once you start living from this place, not identifying with every passing thought, but watching them like clouds drifting through the sky, you begin to experience a different kind of freedom. The freedom of not being trapped in the illusion of self. The freedom of realizing that you don't have to be controlled by thoughts that were never really yours to begin with. But here's the thing. If you are just the awareness behind the thoughts, then why does the mind work so hard to keep you from realizing this? That's where the illusion runs even deeper. And that's what we need to uncover next. For thousands of years, spiritual seekers and philosophers have tried to wake up from the illusion of self. But why? Why does the mind create this illusion in the first place? Why do we live our lives assuming that we are the ones thinking, choosing, and controlling, when all evidence suggests otherwise? To answer this, let's go back to the 20th century, to one of the greatest thinkers in psychology, Carl Jung. Jung spent his life studying the hidden parts of the human mind. He called it the unconscious, a vast, unseen force driving your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without your awareness. According to Jung, most people aren't living their own lives. They are living out unconscious patterns that were formed long before they ever questioned them. Think about the habits you have, the emotions you struggle with, the thoughts that loop endlessly in your mind. Did you create them? or did they just become part of you over time? Jung argued that much of what we believe to be ours is actually a collection of inherited ideas, beliefs passed down from culture, family, and experience, all stored in the unconscious. And because we never question them, they form what we call the ego, the idea of who we are. But here's the shocking part. The ego is not real. It's not a solid, fixed thing. It's just a story, a mental construct built from years of conditioning. And the biggest trick the ego plays is convincing you that it is you. Jung believed that people suffer not because of reality itself, but because they mistake their thoughts for reality. Imagine someone who is terrified of public speaking. The moment they stand up, their mind fills with thoughts. I'm going to mess up. People will judge me. This is going to go wrong. Where did these thoughts come from? Did they consciously choose them? Or are they simply old fears, deeply rooted in past experiences, resurfacing like a pre-programmed response? Jung believed that awakening begins when you stop identifying with these thoughts, when you realize that they are not you. They are just echoes from the unconscious mind, appearing on their own. And this goes even further. What if every opinion you have, your likes, your dislikes, your desires, were never actually chosen by you? What if the way you see the world is just the result of deeply ingrained conditioning, shaped long before you were aware enough to question it? Think about the things you believe are good or bad. Where did those judgments come from? Did you analyze life from an objective perspective and come to your own conclusions? Or were you handed a blueprint by your parents, by society, by experiences that shaped your perception without your permission? Jung called this shadow work, the process of uncovering all the unconscious programming that controls your thoughts and actions. He believed that most people go through life never realizing that the self they identify with is just a collection of mental patterns, looping over and over again. And once you see this, something incredible happens. You stop taking every thought seriously. You stop reacting to every fear as if it's real. You stop feeling like a prisoner inside your own mind, because now you know the truth. You are not the thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. And the moment you realize this, you can begin to break free from the illusion. But the question remains, if you are not your thoughts, your ego, or even your unconscious conditioning, then what are you? That's what we'll explore next. If you are not your thoughts, not your beliefs, not even your unconscious patterns, then what exactly are you? This question isn't just some abstract philosophical puzzle. It's the key to breaking free from the illusion that has controlled you since the day you were born. And strangely enough, modern neuroscience is beginning to confirm what ancient wisdom traditions have been saying for centuries. The self is just a mental construct, a shifting illusion created by the brain. Take the famous split brain experiments from the 1960s, conducted by neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga. These studies involved patients who had undergone surgery to sever the connection between the two hemispheres of their brain. Normally, the left and right sides of the brain communicate constantly, but when that connection was cut, something bizarre happened. Patients were shown an image in their left field of vision, which is processed by the right hemisphere, and yet they had no conscious awareness of what they saw. But here's the strange part. Their body still responded. Their hand would reach for an object they couldn't explain, and when they were asked why they reached for it, their left hemisphere, responsible for language and storytelling, made up an explanation on the spot. For example, if they saw an image of a snow shovel but were unaware they saw it, their brain would invent a completely different reason. Something like, "Oh, I just thought of shoveling because it's winter." The mind cannot accept not knowing, even when it has no access to the real reason behind an action. It creates a story to maintain the illusion of control. Now think about what this means for your everyday life. How many of the things you believe, the choices you make, the thoughts that arise in your head, are just the mind filling in gaps, creating explanations for things that were never actually chosen by you? If a thought appears and your mind instantly justifies it, how can you tell which thoughts are truly yours and which are just the brain keeping up the illusion of control? This is why, when you observe your mind closely, you begin to notice something uncomfortable. It never stops talking. There's a constant inner dialogue, a voice that comments, judges, narrates everything you experience. It tells you what's right, what's wrong, what to do, what to avoid. It makes predictions, analyzes situations, and reacts emotionally before you even have a chance to process what's happening. But if you sit and listen closely, you'll realize something incredible. You are not that voice. That voice is just the brain narrating experience based on conditioning, past memories, and unconscious beliefs. It's a reflex. You don't control it. You don't summon it. It just happens. And the reason it never stops? Because the moment the mind stops talking, the illusion of self begins to collapse. That's why so many ancient traditions, from Zen Buddhism to Advaita Vedanta, emphasize silence as the key to awakening. Because when the mind becomes still, you start to notice something deeper, a presence, a pure awareness that has been there all along, watching. This awareness doesn't judge. It doesn't comment. It doesn't control. It just sees. This is the real you, not the thinker, not the narrator, but the silent awareness behind all of it. And this is where everything starts to shift. When you stop identifying with the voice in your head, you stop being trapped by it. You stop believing every fear. You stop getting caught in every craving. You stop feeling like a prisoner inside your own thoughts, because now you see them for what they are, just passing clouds in the sky of awareness. But here's the challenge. Even when people realize this, they keep falling back into old patterns. The mind pulls them back in, tricking them into identifying with the endless stream of thoughts. Why does this happen? Why is it so hard to stay in this state of clarity? The answer lies in how the mind keeps you distracted and how to break free from it for good. That's what we'll explore next. When you stop identifying with the endless stream of thoughts, you begin to see the mind for what it is, a storyteller, not the truth. You are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness behind it, the observer that has been there all along. But here's the thing. This realization isn't the end, it's the beginning. Because the mind will keep trying to pull you back in, convincing you that you are it. The key is to keep watching, to keep questioning, to keep waking up from the illusion. And if this video made you think, even for a second, then your journey has already started. Let's go even deeper. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below. Who do you think you are now?